Hey guys, today we'll be taking a look at the 2022 Senate map based on the betting market. So the betting markets can be a very good indicator as to how states will vote in each of these elections that we have, and they have been very accurate in predicting elections in the past. And so the last time we looked at those markets was around a month ago. We saw the Democrats took the lead in the betting markets in many of the key races, and what we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks is that Democrats have been able to maintain those leads or actually expand upon them. So in this video, we'll be filling in the Senate map based on the latest betting odds for each party and their odds of winning these races. So a solid state is a state in which either party has an over 95% chance of winning. These are the states that I have already filled in. Now, states in which either party has between a 75 to 95% chance of winning, these are going to be the likely states. Between 60 and 75 is going to be lean, and any state in which either party has between a 50 and 60% chance of winning, these are going to be our most competitive states, the tilt states. So in this video, we'll be filling in every single state with these ratings based on the betting numbers that we're seeing. And we'll start off with the state of Washington, where Patty Murray will be running for her 5th term in office. She was first elected in 1992, and she will come in first in the blanket primary that will occur here in Washington. Basically, we're going to have a blanket primary where the top 2 candidates end off facing in November. This is the same system that California has, and the second place finisher is expected to be Tiffany Smiley. Tiffany Smiley will become the second place finisher and will be the one to end up challenging Patty Murray. And the latest polls do show Patty Murray leading over Tiffany Smiley. I think it would be a very big surprise if she lost her re-election. Patty Murray has been leading by pretty significant margins in all of the most recent polls that have been released. And looking at the betting markets, she has a 92% chance at winning her re-election, just 9% for Tiffany Smiley and any Republican that is trying to challenge her. So the state of Washington is definitely going to be a likely state here for the Democrats. Now, in the state of Nevada, we have a much more competitive race. This race will be between Catherine Cortez Masto and Adam Laxalt. Masto will be running for her 2nd term in office. She was first elected in 2016 to succeed Harry Reid, and Adam Laxalt was the 2018 gubernatorial nominee, and currently he is actually favored to win this election. Looking at the betting markets, the Republican Party has a 58% chance at flipping the Senate seat in Nevada, just 44 for the Democrats. And if you look at the odds here, the odds were higher for the Republicans just a couple of weeks ago. The odds did go down significantly after Roe v. Wade was overturned, and of course this was a result of Adam Laxalt coming out in support of Roe v. Wade being overturned in one of the most pro-choice states in the country. So that is not going to help him, but he is still favored in this race according to the betting markets. If you look at the polls here in Nevada, the race really has been very back and forth, although Masto has led in the most recent polls released, but still it has been very back and forth, and the polls really do not tell us too much about this race. All we know right now is that Nevada is going to be one of the most competitive races, and I do think that Catherine Cortez Masto currently is the most vulnerable Democrat on the ballot this November. So based on the betting odds we're seeing right now, Nevada is going to be a tilt state for the GOP. Now, moving on to the state of Utah, we have another surprisingly close election here. It should be solid for the Republican Party, just like Washington, it should be solid for the Democrats. But in Utah, we actually have a likely rating here in this state according to the betting markets. Evan McMullin has a 12% chance at defeating Republican incumbent Mike Lee. Mike Lee is still the favorite in this race, though. He is of the Trump wing of the Republican Party. Evan McMullin is a conservative independent. He is one of the never Trumper conservatives, and so he will be running to challenge Mike Lee. And there is no Democratic nominee in this race because, of course, Democrats would have no chance at winning this race, so they chose instead to endorse McMullin. If you look at the 2016 election, Misty Snow only won 27% of the vote. This was a margin of 41% in favor of Mike Lee. So Mike Lee is going to have a much tougher time winning his re-election this time around. If you look at the polling that has been done for this race, McMullin is doing relatively well. Lee is only up by 9.6%, and if you look at the most recent poll released, Evan McMullin is only down by 5%. So Mike Lee really is in one of the most competitive elections that he has been in, and currently he only has an 88% chance of winning. So the state of Utah is going to be likely for the GOP. In the state of Arizona, we have another very competitive race just like we do in Nevada, this time with Mark Kelly, another incumbent Democrat running for his re-election. So Kelly was first elected in the 2020 special election and will now be running for his first full term in office. On the Republican side, whoever wins the primary is currently still a toss-up. Jim Lamont is one of the frontrunners in the race. However, Blake Masters is the one that receive the endorsement of Donald Trump, and so currently he is still the favorite despite Lamont winning in the most recent poll released. But I do still expect Blake Masters to end up on top, but really we're just going to have to see what happens in the primary on the 2nd of August. This will be one of the most competitive primaries of the year, and so whoever challenges Mark Kelly is going to have an impact on this race, because right now Mark Kelly does poll the best against Blake Masters, who is currently the frontrunner. If you look at the polls between Blake Masters and Mark Kelly and then compare them to the polls between Jim Lamont and Mark Kelly, you'll see that Blake Masters does significantly worse than Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly leads by 6% over Lamont in the most recent poll release, while he leads over Mark Kelly by a margin of 9%. So right now, according to the betting markets though, the state of Arizona is going to be a tilt state for the Democratic Party. Mark Kelly took the lead a couple of weeks ago, then he lost it, and then now he's been able to maintain his very slight lead over the last couple of days. So Mark Kelly currently is the favorite to win his re-election in the state of Arizona. So we're going to see our second tilt state on this map, with Arizona being tilt for the Democrats. In Colorado, Michael Bennet is running for his re-election. He will be running against Joe Adia, who recently won the nomination of the Republican Party. If you look at the only poll that has been released for this race, Michael Bennet leads by 13 points. He is pretty much on track to winning his third term in office. If you look at the betting odds, he has an 84% chance at winning 17 for the Republicans. This race is really going to be one in which the GOP does not stand too much of a chance in. If you look at the 2016 election, Bennet won by 5.7%. In 2010, when he won his first term, the race was a lot closer. So Michael Bennet has not especially seen the strongest margins in Colorado. However, if you look at the 2020 election, John Hickenlooper flipped Colorado by 9.3%. And if you look at the betting markets right now, it is very solid for the Democrats. So the state of Colorado is going to be a likely state, and it will go for Michael Bennet, at least according to the markets right now. And so now we have the western half of the U.S. finished. I'm going to move on now to the states that border the Mississippi. So starting off with the state of Iowa, Iowa is actually only going to be likely for the GOP, despite Chuck Grassley running for his 8th term in office. He will be running against Michael Franken, who is a former Navy Vice Admiral. Navy Vice Admiral is basically the second highest achievable rank in the U.S. Navy currently, and so Chuck Grassley is going to face a pretty tough election here against Michael Franken. If you look at the most recent polling that has been done for this race, I mean, Chuck Grassley is not even doing that well. He only led over Michael Franken by 9% in the most recent poll release. Other polls show him up only by margins of 5%. This one right here with Chuck Grassley only at 49%. And I mean, if you look at the last election in the state of Iowa, Chuck Grassley won by 25%. In 2010, he won his re-election to a 5th term by 31%. So really, Chuck Grassley is not doing well at all in this race, and the betting markets are reflecting this. He only has a 94% chance of winning. You would expect this number to be a lot higher in any other year. Democrats actually have a surprisingly high 7% chance at winning the election in Iowa, so Iowa is going to be likely here for the GOP. And so now moving down south to the state of Missouri, this race could be very competitive, but it really depends on who ends up winning the Republican primary. If Eric Greitens ends up being the Republican nominee, he is the former governor of the state of Missouri, and he would be the worst nominee to go up against Lucas Coons or Trudy Valentine. However, currently Eric Schmidt has led in the most recent polls released. Vicky Hartzler is also very much in this race. RCP actually gives a lead to Greitens, so we're just going to have to see what happens here, but Eric Greitens would be the worst nominee in this race. Vicky Hartzler is a current U.S. representative, and Eric Schmidt is the Attorney General of Missouri. So all three of these candidates currently have a good chance at winning the nomination, but as long as Eric Greitens does not win, this race would be very solid for the GOP. If you look at the betting markets currently, the Republican Party has a 91% chance at winning this race, and just 9% is the odds for the Democrats. So this race is going to be a likely Republican state as well. And so now we have all of the states west of the Mississippi done, and we have 47 seats for the Democrats, 46 for the Republicans, with 7 toss-up races. And now I'll be moving on to the upper region of the eastern half of the U.S. So starting off with the state of Wisconsin, where Ron Johnson will be running for his 3rd term in office. He, of course, will win the renomination of the Republican Party, while on the Democratic side, Mandela Barnes is currently expected to be the Democratic nominee. He is the current lieutenant governor of Wisconsin, serving alongside Tony Evers. And if you look at the betting odds, in this race, the Republicans here are clearly favored. Ron Johnson has a 71% chance at winning his re-election, just 31 for Mandela Barnes and the Democrats. 1 in 3 is still pretty significant, but the GOP does have the clear edge in this one. So Wisconsin is going to be a lean state for the Republicans. In the state of Ohio, it is going to be a little bit more solid for the Republicans. Ohio is going to be a likely state, but the odds here are surprisingly low for the GOP. If you look at the race here in Ohio, it will be between J.D. Vance and Tim Ryan. J.D. Vance is not even polling ahead of Tim Ryan. Currently, Ryan has led in all of the most recent polls that have been released. The last 6 polls in the row, Tim Ryan has been ahead, and 8 out of the last 9 polls released here in the state of Ohio show Tim Ryan leading over J.D. Vance. So Republicans really are not in the best situation here. Their numbers are abysmal compared to where they really should be, but as of right now, the Republicans are still heavily favored in this race. There's a 78% chance that they hold on to a 23% chance that the Democrats flip it currently, according to the betting market. So the state of Iowa is going to be likely here for the GOP as well. In the state of Pennsylvania, we have a race that really is a lot less competitive than it should be. Democrats have a 60% chance at winning this race, and John Fetterman really is proving to be a very strong nominee on the Democratic side, and we're seeing the exact opposite from Mehmet Oz. In 2016, Pat Toomey barely won his re-election, and this time around, the Republicans do not even have an incumbent in this race. Mehmet Oz is running to replace Pat Toomey, as Toomey is retiring after this cycle. So Mehmet Oz right now really is in a very precarious situation, and so is the GOP, as this race really is one that they have to hold on to if they want to have a good chance at winning the Senate majority. And right now, John Fetterman is expected to defeat Mehmet Oz according to all of the polls that have been released. And if you look at the betting odds, I mean, his odds have only been going up in the last couple of months. He took the lead in early June, and after that, he was able to expand his lead now, where he has a 61% chance at winning at this moment in time, 63 yesterday. And the Republicans, I mean, just a couple of months ago, they had a 60% chance at winning this race. So Mehmet Oz really is screwing up the Pennsylvania Senate race for the Republicans, and that is why currently the state of Pennsylvania is going to be a lean Democratic state. Now, moving on to the state of New Hampshire, we have a very competitive race here as well, with Maggie Hassan, who was elected in 2016 in a very impressive victory over Kelly Ayotte. This was the closest election of the year, but Ayotte was the Republican incumbent, and in 2016, this was one of the only 2 flips of the year, with the other one being Illinois, where Tammy Duckworth defeated Mark Kirk. So in 2022, we're going to see a competitive race here once again. Whoever the Republican nominee ends up being, currently the 2 frontrunners are Donald Boldeau and Chuck Morse, but we're just going to see who ends up winning in September. There hasn't been any polls released for that primary. So right now, though, on the betting markets, Democrats have a 64% chance of winning, 35 for the Republicans. And I mean, this race was neck and neck between the Democrats and the Republicans just a few months ago. Then the odds for Maggie Hassan did go up. They were pretty stagnant. However, after Roe v. Wade was overturned in late June, Hassan's odds went up once again. So right now, according to the betting markets, the state of New Hampshire is going to be lean for the Democratic Party. I definitely agree with this categorization. I think that the race is going to be competitive, but Democrats do have a clear advantage. And now we're just left with the 3 competitive southeastern races. So starting off with the state of North Carolina, where Ted Budd will be running against Sherry Beasley to succeed Richard Burr. If you look at this election here, though, Ted Budd is polling well against Beasley. He is up in the polling average on both RCP and 538. He has led in every single poll that has been released, except for this one poll released by Survey USA just a month ago. However, since then, Ted Budd has led in the other polls released, not by the largest of margins, but large enough that he will probably end up winning this race. Democrats do normally underperform the polls in North Carolina, and so that is why Sherry Beasley is still likely to end up losing this race. Looking at the betting markets currently, she has just a 20% chance at winning. Currently, the Republican Party has a better chance at winning in North Carolina than in the state of Ohio, which really should be a lot less competitive. So Democrats are doing well in Ohio, but not that well in North Carolina in terms of actually winning the race. It will be competitive nonetheless, though, but right now, Republicans have still an 8 in 10 chance at winning the race. So the state of North Carolina is going to be likely. In the state of Georgia, we of course have the race between Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker with 49 seats for both parties. This really just goes to show you how competitive these Senate elections are going to be. So Herschel Walker right now, I think, is going to end up being one of the other GOP nominees that the Republican Party really seriously regrets nominating in the very end. He is polling terribly against Raphael Warnock. Both RCP and 538 give the lead to Warnock according to the polling average currently. And if you look at all of these polls, I mean, the polls in Georgia have been famously accurate. They were accurate in all three of the major presidential elections in Georgia. Those were, of course, the presidential election as well as the 2 Senate elections and in the runoffs as well. So Raphael Warnock did basically win by what the polls expected him to win by in 2021. Same thing for Jon Ossoff. So Herschel Walker being behind in the polls really is a serious issue in Georgia. It is not like North Carolina where Democrats underperform the polls. Democrats have not been known to underperform the polls in Georgia. And so right now, that is why Herschel Walker is actually expected to lose this race now, despite having a 60% chance of winning just a few months ago. Right now, the Democrats' odds have continued to increase from just 40% a few months ago all the way up to the 56% chance of winning in Georgia that they have right now, according to the betting markets. So right now, the Democratic Party is clearly favored here in Georgia, and Georgia is going to be a tilt state for the Democrats. This will give them their 50th seat, which means according to the betting markets right now, Democrats are expected to retain their Senate majority. And now we have just the state of Florida left on this map, where Marco Rubio is fully expected to win his 3rd term in office. He will be running against Val Demings, who's going to win the Democratic nomination. The Democratic nomination process is going to occur in late August, so we do still have a while until Val Demings ends up winning the nomination. But if you look at the betting odds, she has just a 7% chance at winning this race, 94 for Marco Rubio. I mean, this really just shows you how much Florida has shifted to the right in just the last couple of years. If you look at the 2018 election, it was very competitive between Rick Scott and Bill Nelson. Nelson was the incumbent, though, so this was a flip for the Republican Party. 2016, the race was not competitive at all, with Marco Rubio easily defeating Patrick Murphy, and so I think we're going to see the same thing this time around with Val Demings losing to Marco Rubio. And really, it's just another testament as to how red of a state Florida really is now. Democrats have just a 7% chance at winning in a state that was so competitive just a couple of decades ago. So Florida is going to be likely for the Republican Party. And so this is the finalized 2022 Senate map based on the betting markets, 50-50 for each party. I mean, this just goes to show you how competitive this year's elections are going to be, with 3 tilt states, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. Democrats are currently expected to hold on to Arizona and Georgia and flip Pennsylvania. Republicans are only expected to flip the state of Nevada. And if you look at the 538 forecast, I mean, 50-50 here as well. These Senate elections really are going to be very close between the 2 major parties. But right now, Democrats do have a very slight edge because they hold the vice presidency with Kamala Harris as the tiebreaker vote. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you comment down below which party you think will win this year's Senate elections. Like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and I will see you guys in the next video.